welcome to Gefet in the Daf. I'm Yael Shimoni, bringing to you with Hadran and Yeshivat Risha, learning a little bit more in depth in your Daf Yomi every day. So every week we choose one sugya and do a little bit of iyun on it and try to do Rashi, Tosfot, and sometimes other people. This time, because we're in Nedarim, we're doing Mefarish and Ran, but we have a special guest in our Gefet today, which is the Rambam. Very, very, very famous Rambam, very interesting Rambam here on Nedarim, discussing a very important question. Can a person receive a salary for teaching Torah? So, of course, this question is very relevant to me and to many other people and to Jewish education in general. So let's look at what the sugya has to say and what the Rambam has to say. And Bezrat Hashem will also look all the way down to the Shulchan Aruch. So, the Mishnah in Daf Lamed Hey says that one of the things that a person cannot do if he's mudar hana'ah from another person is to teach him mikra. Says the Mishnah, מלמדו מדרש, הלכות והגדות, אבל לא ילמדנו מקרא. אבל מלמד הוא את בניו ואת בנותיו מקרא. So the question is, why? Why is there a difference between teaching Tanakh, Mikra, how to read the Torah, or to teach Midrash, Halachot, and Haggadot? Says the Gemara in Daf Lamed Vav, and it's a whole discussion that continues all the way to the other Mishnah in Daf Lamed Chet. And we're going to just read the first part of it. And the Gemara says the following, מלמדו מדרש, הלכות והגדות, אבל לא ילמדנו מקרא. Quoting the Mishnah. מקרא, מהי טעמה לא ילמדנו? משום דקמהנה ליה, מדרש נמי כמהנה ליה. Says the Gemara, there's no difference in the hana of somebody learning Mikra and somebody learning Gemara, Halachot והגדות. Shmuel answers, אמר שמואל במקום שנוטלים שכר על המקרא ואין נוטלים שכר על המדרש, אין נוטלים שכר על המדרש. הקמה שמלן, אפילו במקום שנוטלים שכר על המקרא שרי למשקל, על המדרש לא שרי למשקל. Says Shmuel, the reason that the Mishnah is written this way is because the Mishnah is teaching us a different law, not about hana'ah, not about mudar hana'ah. It's teaching us that mikra, some places you are allowed to take money for your teaching. But midrash, agadot, and halachot, you are not allowed to take any money. How do we know that? מה ישנה מדרש דלו? הכתיב, ואותי ציווה אדוני בעת ההיא ללמד אתכם. How do we know this? Because Moshe says, ואותי ציווה אדוני בעת ההיא ללמד אתכם, וכתיב, ראה לימדתי אתכם חוקים ומשפטים כאשר ציווני השם. מה אני בחינם, אף אתם נמי בחינם. So Moshe tells us that we should be teaching other people Torah the same way that he taught us. What is the specific way that Moshe taught us? So, okay, there are all kinds of things that Moshe did, which are not discussed here in the Gemara, but there's a specific part of what he did, which is very important. He taught us for free. Ma'ani bechinam, afatem bechinam. Says the Gemara, mikra nami bechinam. We also, so therefore, any teaching of any Torah has to be bechinam. Answers Rav, Sachar Shimur, Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Sachar Pisuk Te'ami. Okay, so let's understand what's happening here. We have the Mefarish that helps us understand. And the Mefarish tells us that what the Gemara is describing here is that any learning of Torah has to be for free. It doesn't matter if it's Mikra, if it's Midrash, if it's Gemara, if it's Halach and Agada. The Torah teaching has to be for free. But the reason that Mikra, you can actually take money, it's because Mikra, you're also giving something to the person that is not only teaching him Torah. What is the extra that you're giving? That's machoket between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. What's extra in teaching Mikra? So Rav says, Schar Shimur, explains the Mefarish, Schar Shimur is we take money על שכר שימור שמשמרים התינוקות שהם מניחים אותם לצאת ולעסוק בדברים בטלים. Okay? Why does the person who's teaching Mikra get money? Because teaching Mikra is teaching a younger age. And young children have to have also a babysitter, right? Part of why young children go to school and to kindergarten is that they'll be kept and won't be doing mischief and problematic things. They have to be shamur. So when you pay the melamed, you're not paying him for his Torah, you're paying him for his babysitting. Okay, I was a teacher for many years. And sometimes teachers say, "What, am I a babysitter?" So what Rav is saying, yes, you are also a babysitter. And actually, your payment is not for your Torah; it is for your babysitting skills. So that's Rav's answer for the reason why we can be paid for teaching Mikra. Rabbi Yochanan gives a different explanation. שקל מינהו שמלמדם ניקוד וטעמים. ויששכר מצא למשקל. ופיסוק וטעמים אינו אלא במקרא, ולהכי לא ילמדנו מקרא. Says Rabbi Yochanan, when you teach how to read Mikra, you're also teaching an ability of reading. You're teaching him pisuk, you're teaching him ta'amim. Okay, these are things which are not written in the Torah, right? If you open up a Torah scroll, there will be no pisuk and no ta'amim. So when you're teaching pisuk and ta'amim, you are not teaching part of the Torah, you're teaching extra curriculum, and for that you're getting paid. So what's the difference between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan? A very big and important difference. Then according to the Okimta of Rav, if I'm teaching grown-ups, it doesn't matter if I'll be teaching them Mikra. Grown-ups don't need keeping, they don't need babysitting. So therefore, even if I'm teaching Mikra, I won't be able to get any payment. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, even if I teach grown-ups, I can still get paid because I'm teaching them extra curriculum work. But what's similar to both of them is for teaching Torah, you're not supposed to get any payment. You only get payment for extra things that you're adding on to your teaching of Torah. Okay, here I want to step aside and bring in our guest speaker, which is the Rambam. I want to look at Pirush Rambam Mishnayot. And the Rambam here says that there's something very, very important to learn from this Mishnah. Says the Rambam, after he summed up the sugya and also saying similar things to what the Mefarsh said, and he's saying, really, you can teach for payment if you're getting for extra curriculum or if you're doing babysitting, that's fine. But, says the Rambam, I have a very big tmiha on people. ואני תמה, says the Rambam, על אנשים גדולים שעברה אותם התאווה והכחישו את האמת והנהיגו לעצמם קצוות ביד המשפטים והלימוד ונתלו בראיות קלושות. Says the Rambam, there is one thing I don't understand. You see this Mishnah? This Mishnah is very, very clear. The Gemara is very clear. You cannot get money for knowing Torah and teaching Torah. You can only get money for other stuff. I don't understand how very big people, it sounds like he's talking about big Rabbani, are blinded by their taiva and they're being makrish, the MS, and they have themselves being paid very high payments for what? For teaching and for being judges. How can that be? That is very, very strange, says the Rambam. They have all kinds of strange rayos. And the Rambam promises a promise. He says, wait, you're learning Nedarim? Wait for Masechet Avos. There, I have a lot to teach you. So, we're doing Iyun. Let's pop to Masechet Avot and see what the Rambam has to say regarding these people who are getting high salaries for teaching Torah and for being judges in Beit Din. What is the Mishnah in Masechet Avot that the Rambam is talking about? So it's a very famous Mishnah and a very famous statement of Hillel. Let's start. Mishnah Avot, פרק ד', משנה ה', רבי צדוק אומר, אל תעשה מטרה להתגדל בהם, ולא קרדום לחפור בהם. וכן היה הלל אומר, ודהשתמש בתג החלף. הלמדת, כל הנהנה מדברי תורה, נוטל חייו מן העולם. Okay, so we have two memors here, Rabbi Tzadok and Hillel. Rabbi Tzadok says, don't use the Torah as a crown, and don't use the Torah as a kardom. I'm lacking the word now in English, but as a digging tool. Digging tool means don't use them for parnasa. So all Rabbi Tzadok says is don't do it. And Hillel says something much harder. He says, "Hamishtamesh betag halaf." Those who use the crown will be halaf, cholef min haolam, will be out of the world. Says the Mishnah, halamadeta, you learn from Hillel, כל הנהנה מדברי תורה נוטל את חייו מן העולם. If you will take money, parnasa, or use it as a crown to yourself, you will be taking your life out of this world. What does this mean, and what does the Rambam have to say about this? So the Rambam here is a very long Rambam, and I highly recommend you read on your own the Rambam in Pirush HaMishnayot, Masechet Avos, Perek Daled, on this Mishnah, Mishtamesh B'Tag HaChalaf. And now I'll just sum up a few points and read a few passages of what he says here, because these are very strong passages, and every Torah learner, and of course every Torah teacher, has to read this, I think, at least once a year. Okay, so says the Rambam, כבר רציתי לא לדבר בזה הציווי, לפי שהוא מבואר, וליהודי גם כן שדברי בו לא יאותו לרוב הגדולים בתורה, ואולי לכולם, אבל אומר ולא אחוש מבלי לשאת פנים למי שקדם ולמי שנמצא. So Rambam says, I'm going to talk about something which I know is very obvious, but for some unknown reason, the Gedolim themselves are not acknowledging this, but I don't care. I'm going to talk. You won't silence me. No. כי זה שכבר אמר, אל תעשה את התורה לקרדום לחפור בה, כלומר, אל תחשביה כלי לפרנסה. הוא באר ואמר שכל מי שיהנה מזה העולם לכבוד תורה, הוא קורא את נפשו מן העולם. Says the Rambam, it's written here very, very clearly, that you're not allowed to do parnasa in Torah. והעלימו בני האדם עיניהם מזו הלשון הגלויה, והשליכו אחורי גבם, ונתלו בפשטי מאמרים שלא הבינו, והטילו להם חוקים על היחידים ועל הקהילות, ועשו את המנויים התוריים לחוק מכסים. והביאו בני אדם לסבור שטות גמורה, שזה צריך ומחויב לעזור לחכמים, תלמידים ולאנשים עוסקים בתורה ותורתם אומנותם. Says the Rambam, people ignore this Mishnah, and people have created positions and salaries, and that is a total shtut. It's total silliness. It's against the Mishnah. It's against the Torah. So continues the Rambam, says there is no proof in the Torah that you should give people money and salaries for teaching Torah. And he continues and says, לפי שאנו, אם נעיין בתולדות החכמים, לא נמצא אצלם לא הטלת חובות על בני אדם, לא קיבוץ ממון לישיבות, ולא לראשי גלויות, ולא לדיינים, ולא לשאר האנשים. Says the Rambam, let's just go over the life of Chachamim. We know a lot about the life of Chachamim. You will not find somebody getting salaries for learning Torah or for sitting in yeshiva. So, what kind of lives did the Chachamim, Tanaim, and Amorim have? Says the Rambam, all of them had other work. No one of them was only a Talmid Chacham. Hillel HaZaken היה חוטב עצים. Chanina ben Dosa היה עני, and he never asked anybody to give him money. Karna, which was a very big dayan in Eretz Yisrael, הוא היה משקה שדות. He was an agricultural, and he was a חקלאי. And when people would come to him, כשהיו באים בעלי הדין, היה אומר, או שתיתנו לי מי שישקיע במקומי כשאני מתעסק איתכם, או שתיתנו לי שיעור מה שיבטל מעבודתי ואדון לכם. Karna said, I don't want money for being a dayan, but what I'm asking is, if I'm missing a day of work, either find somebody to fill in for me, or pay me for the time that I'm losing for being your dayan. But of course, no payment for me as a dayan, payment for me as a worker, a simple worker. Okay, so we have three Talmidei Chachamim, very big Talmidei Chachamim, that they have work. Some of them even don't have work, like Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, but they work in very, very physical, basic jobs. And when they ask for money, it's only because they're losing hours from their regular job. And continues the Rambam and says, maybe you think that people there in Israel were not willing to give Talmidei Chachamim money? לא היו בני דורם של אלו וזולתם, לא אכזרים ולא שאינם גומלי חסדים, לא מצאנו חכם מן החכמים שיהיה מצבם דחוק, שאנשי דורו אינם מרחיבים לו, חלילה להשם, אלא הם בעצמם היו חסידים, מאמינים באמת לעצמם, מאמינים בהשם בתורת משה, ולא יתירו לעצמם, והסברו שזה חילול השם, לפי שהם יחשבו התורה למלאכה מן המלאכות, אשר מתפרסים בהם ותתבזה אצלהם, ועושה בזה דבר השם ביזה. Says the Rambam, people wanted to give them money, and would have given them money happily, but the Talmidei Chachamim did not want to get paid for being Torah teachers. They preferred to be poor, because they thought that to pay for Torah is not like a usual melacha. If you pay for Torah, it will make it like another job. and we don't want it to be another job. So they were the ones who were not willing to get paid for their teaching or judging in Torah. Continues the Rambam and says, it is true that in a few places in the Gemara you see that some Chachamim took money, but if you read these passages, you see it's because these Chachamim were either very old or were handicapped, so they couldn't work at all. So they're exactly like any other ani or old person who needs society to take care of them, but not because they're Talmidei Chachamim. They just took help from the Kehila, like any other poor or handicapped person. But of course, if they were healthy, they had their jobs. Continues the Rambam and says, Rav Yosef, he was a chotev etzim. He wasn't a chotev. He would carry logs on his back. What does that mean? That he was happy that he was warm. He was very poor, but he was warm because he was carrying wood on his back. So this is what all of our chachamim were doing, says the Rambam. The chachamim had jobs. Okay, he continues and tries to explain why people are wrong. I won't get into this, but I want to go into what the Rambam thinks still a Talmid Chacham can be allowed to do. So first, we saw already in the passages before that Talmid Chacham, if he cannot work, okay, old or sick, of course, he has to get support from the Kehillah, because the Kehillah supports its weak people. Everybody has to have, you can't die, right? That's the idea of tzedakah. But of course, you don't get money for your teaching Torah. When do you get money? Well, everybody is supposed to have their own job. And if you're taking away time from your regular job, then you are getting money paid for the time that you are missing from your regular job. And the regular job doesn't have to be like a very special job. It can be like a very technical job. And then your salary will not be a salary of like a big professor. It will be a salary of a smith or a very basic worksman, because that's your usual work. But the Rambam at the end of his passage says that there are two things that Talmidei Chachamim do get extra. Dafka because they're not allowed to take money for teaching Torah. So where do Talmidei Chachamim get extra? So first, says the Rambam, Talmidei Chachamim can give a schora, they can give goods to somebody to be socher for them, and then they're supposed to be the first ones to sell their goods. So they're getting like extra points in salesmanship. And also they have something very important. They don't need to pay taxes. Okay, and those of you who pay taxes know that this is very good, not to pay taxes. Like this is really what Talmidei Chachamim get for being Talmidei Chachamim. They're free of tax free. כן פטרה התורה את כל תלמידי החכמים מחובות השלטון כולו מן המיסים, because they're not allowed to take money for being teachers. So obviously, if you do take money for being teachers, for teaching Torah, that's a problem, okay? Because you have this free of tax, but that's because you're not getting paid for your Torah. This issue of tax will be discussed more in length in Baba Basra. Bezrat Hashem, we'll learn it together. So I want to sum up the Rambam. The Rambam says what the Mishnah in Nedarim is talking about is 100% true. It is not allowed to take money for teaching Torah. What kind of money are you allowed to take? You have your regular job. If you're taking away time from your regular job, then you either get a replacement or get money to fill in for what you've lost. But this is not like a special high salary for being a Torah teacher. And also you have two things that you're getting like extra points as far as tax is concerned. You're free of tax, and also you're the first one to sell your goods. So that's the Rambam. Again, we saw such an Nedarim and talks a lot in Masechet Avot. Highly recommended to read. So let's go back to our Gemara and see if the Rishonim around here are mirroring the Rambam's wrath and strength. So they're not so strong, as we saw. The Mefarish didn't mention something so dramatic like the Rambam did, but the Ran here says something which is very similar to what the Rambam said, but not in the same voice. It's not so scary. Okay, the Ran says in Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph, לעניין הלכה קיימה לן הכי, דעל המדרש לא שרי למשכן. מיהו הנמי לשכר לימוד, אבל אגר בטלה שרי. Says the Ran, we know that if you teach Mikra, you can get money for being a babysitter, you can get money for your extracurriculum. For Midrash, you can get paid, but for schar batala, which is what the Rambam described, to take money because you're losing time from your regular job. What is the Ran's proof for this? The Yerushalmi here in our Masechta. והכי איתה בירושלמי דגרסינן הטה מחול אף על מקרא ותרגום. כן, תלמוד לומר חוקים ומשפטים, חוקים ומשפטים אתם מלמדים בחינם, מי אתם מלמדים בחינם מקרא ותרגום. וכן חמי מתניה נסבין אגריאנו, אמר רבי יהודן ברבי ישמעאל שכר בטלן הם נוטלים. So this Yerushalmi is very close to the Bavli, slightly different because it's saying it's a gzerat katuv, okay? It's written in the Torah that you can't take money for midrash, and it's not written in the Torah that you're not allowed to take money for mikra. We'll put that aside. But it looks as if what Rabbi Ishmael is saying, that when you see teachers take money, the money that they're taking is char batala. So that's the Ran, saying what the Rambam said, but using the Yerushalmi as a proof, not talking about free of tax, but talking about schar batala. But if we look at the Mefarish in the Yerushalmi, Korban Ha'edah, which is, of course, much more recent than the Ran, he has a different reading in the Yerushalmi, and he says that's what's written in the Yerushalmi, that מלמדי משניות נוטלים שכר הוא מדרבנן, ויש כוח ביד בית דין לעקור דבר מן התורה בדבר שהוא לקיום התורה. It says Korban Ha'edah. No, what's written here in the Yerushalmi is not schar batala. What's written here in the Yerushalmi is dafka an idea that they really took money for teaching because Chachamim have koach to go against Torah laws in order to keep the Torah itself going. We had a few Gefetot about this idea. יש כוח ביד בית דין לעקור דבר מן התורה, and that's how Korban Ha'edah reads this Yerushalmi. That's how he reads this line, וכן חמי מתניה נסבין אגריהו. So that's a different way of reading the Yerushalmi than how the Ran reads the Yerushalmi, a very, very different way. And now maybe we can understand who the Rambam is so mad at, because we see that the Korban Ha'edah is saying that even though it's written in the Torah that you're not allowed to get paid, Chachamim went against the Torah to keep the Torah itself going. Because if you tell somebody you cannot be paid for your Torah, Torah will not survive, because people will not go to become teachers of Torah or Talmidei Chachamim. Okay, so let's go now to the Shulchan Aruch and see who's right. Okay, what do we do? What's halacha? Can we take money for teaching Torah? Is the Korban Ha'edah right, or the Rambam and the Ran? So I'm reading the Shulchan Aruch, הלכות תלמוד תורה, סימן רמ"ו, סעיף ה'. מקום שנהגו ללמד תורה שבכתב, בשכר מותר ללמד בשכר, אבל תורה שבעל פה אסור ללמד בשכר. לא מצא מי שילמדנו בחינם ללמוד בשכר, ואף על פי שהוא צריך ללמוד בשכר, לא יאמר כשם שלמדתי בשכר, כשם שלמדתי בשכר, כך אלמד בשכר, אלא ילמד לאחרים בחינם. ומה שנהגו העידנא ללמד הכל בשכר, אם אין לו במה להתפרנס שרי, ואפילו יש לו, אם הוא שכר בטלה דמוכח, שמניח כל עסקיו ומשאו ומתנו שרי. says the Shulchan Aruch, מה שנהגו העידנא ללמד הכל בשכר. The Shulchan Aruch says that everybody around him nowadays take money for teaching. How could that be? Two heterim, says the Shulchan Aruch. If you don't have another job, okay, you can't do another job. You're only good for teaching Torah. So you're going to get money for your Torah because you don't have another job. Or if it's umdana de muchach. What's umdana de muchach? It's schar batala de muchach. So let's look at the source of where the Shulchan Aruch brings this, and maybe we can understand it more. So the source of the Shulchan Aruch is the Rosh, Masechet Bechorot. The Rosh here in Nedarim tells us, go read what I have to say there. And the Rosh gives these two explanations and these two heterim that you can get money for teaching if you can't do anything else, or if it's batala de muchach, and explains the Ran, not the Ran, the Rosh, I'm sorry, שמניח כל עסקיו ומשאו ומתנו. מסתברא דחשיב מוכח יותר, מקרנא דתהי באמברוזיה ושקיל זוזה. Okay, says Rosh, we know that Karna, this Dayan, really took money just for the hours that he lost. But what happens if somebody is asked all the time to teach Torah, and he is a very, very talented man? So you know that if he would have had time, he would have had a steady job and probably even a very, very good job. So that's schar batala de muchach. Everybody knows that he could have gone to other realms. He could be a lawyer, he could be a doctor, he could be a professor, he could be a scientist, but he went to Torah, so he should get a salary equivalent or close at least, or a good salary, because he could have gone to very, very high and well-earning jobs. So the Shulchan Aruch is being pasuk the Rosh and explaining that because of the Rosh, that's why nowadays everybody is getting paid. So let's look at what we saw here. The Rambam, reading a Mishnah and our Mishnah and in Masechet Avot, says, listen, you can't only be in Torah. You have to have another job. We know also the Rambam did that himself, right? He was a doctor. His job was in Torah. And he says, listen, either you can be, sometimes you have money and you're rich. Sometimes you're poor and you can be poor. But if you want to have money, you can't go for Torah. You have to have another job. And if you're losing hours from your job, you can get paid for the hours that you've lost. The Ran takes this idea of losing hours and puts it as the main point, and he quotes the Yerushalmi. And the Rosh adds two other things, and he says, if you're not good for other things, and you're good for Torah, okay, so you should be paid for your Torah. Or if you're very talented, and we know for sure that you would have gone and had another job, but you are requested to teach 24/7 or even less, but you can't have another job, that's where you can be paid. And Kol Bar Ha'edah says, the Chachamim akru divrei Torah kadei shetitkayem haTorah. But remember that you can always get paid for extra curriculum. So I hope you enjoyed our Gefet today, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we will meet again next week. Take care.